Shetty for doing this. My name is Preeti. Officially, on my name, the record is Preeti Bharadwaj. I prefer being called Preeti. So I was born in Chennai, brought up in Bangalore. I lived all my life in Bangalore. I got married and moved here to Chennai. Chennai was not new because every summer we used to come to my grandmother's house and all that. So it didn't feel like a new place where I'm moving to and all that. And actually, I was very adamant that I did not want to get out of Bangalore. In fact, I did not even want to get out of Jayanagar, where I grew up. I wanted to really build everything around myself in that area. And Bangalore gave me everything that I wanted. So it was not like I wanted to go somewhere else to, settle and all that. I love traveling, so I went everywhere else, but I came back. But my training, everything into the arts actually began when I was around three and a half, where my father put me into music. My father is a professional musician. He plays the percussion instruments. He plays Latin percussion instruments and all that. And he's worked in the light music scene in Karnataka a lot. So he started teaching me music and put me in music classes and all that. So of course I still continue singing and whenever I can train in classes. But I think when I was around 8 or something, I watched a dance performance of my teacher in an auditorium. And I told my mother I want to join dance. So my mother was like, okay, you join. You might quit that also soon. Because it was a time where I joined painting, I quit. I joined basketball, I quit. I joined keyboard class, I quit. But my parents said okay to put me in everything as long as I wanted to be there. So when I said dance, they said okay, this also you want to try, you try. But I, kind of stuck to it. So that's how my training, everything began. My teachers' names are B. Bhanuvati and Sheila Chandrasekhar. They are the ones who have completely trained me in Bharatanatyam. I joined Christ University for my first PUC. That's what they call in Karnataka, right? In other places, you have 11th standard, 12th standard. So first PUC I joined Christ College. It was Christ Junior College. And then there was a really thriving cultural team and all that. Okay, it was very new to me. I came from a school that had inter-school competitions, we participate, all that. But in school I was playing volleyball. So I didn't do a lot of dancing in cultural shows and all that. But in college, there was an opening into experiencing these things. And I feel that actually triggered my love for being on stage more, trying varied forms of dancing, acting, singing. I even sang in the choir for some time. So a lot of things. But I missed playing volleyball. That was one thing. I used to see the college team preparing, but I used to be very like, oh, I left this. I used to feel like that. So anyway, so when I went to college, that is when my foray into contemporary dancing, more of yoga training, everything over that. We used to participate in all these inter-college competitions, etc. Then after my bachelor's in computer applications, I continued studying in Christ. So I finished my BCA and I got a job in an IT firm. That's because my mom was like, get a job and then you figure out if you want to do arts full time. But my father was okay if I wanted to take arts full time because he's a full time artist. So he was okay. But my mom was like, get a job, save some money, then figure out kind of thing. So I got that job, but I didn't understand anything, being in an IT firm. In 15 days, I actually stopped going. I just didn't go. Like how you just suddenly stop going, right, to college, something telling I don't want to go. I just stopped going to office. And then the HR kind of reached out to me and asked what's the matter. I said, see, I don't want to work because this is not my area. I want to do something else. So I'm sorry I took somebody else's opportunity. I shouldn't have done that. In the placement, somebody else could have gotten the job instead of me. But I apologized, etc. So the HR said, okay, we're going to send you 3 letters. Don't respond to anything and we'll consider you absconding. At that time, these words didn't feel like it's a big thing. But he said, can you put the name of the firm in your resume? That you worked here so that they get. I said, I've not done anything. I don't even have an ID card or anything. So how is my resume going to add to your this thing? But he said, if you can do it. And I forgot. But after 6 months or a year, through my teacher, there was a dance performance opportunity in the same IT firm. And I went back and I danced there, and then people are like, oh, this is why you left, is it? So in fact, when I left, there were some of my best friends from college who said, I think you should just pursue arts full time. Just dance full time. We'll figure out. So two of my friends, they suggested I get a job in Christ itself. Why don't you apply as a teacher in the performing arts department? The performing arts department had just begun. So I went and I spoke to the father principal there, and he said the only thing is if you have to work here, you have to have a master's. And my bachelor's was not in arts. So I enrolled in a master's program in Bharatanatyam, off campus. So I started working as an assistant dance coordinator in Christ College. Also, I was pursuing my master's. So there was dance happening full time. So I was like, okay, results be written and all that. After 2 years or something, I figured that I am stuck in only one place. The experience is, kind of circling only in the college. But the real experience is out there when you, kind of perform in different places, interact with different dance companies, work with them, etc. That's when I got a call from a very close friend that he was putting a dance production together, and if I want to be part of that. That was very new to me. I was performing with my teacher all through. From when I joined my dance class, she used to put me on stage and I was performing. So now it started having a name. It was professional dancing, where you are, you're making money out of it slowly. So it was new, and I was like, oh, okay. And you feel, I don't know, you feel a bit respected, and you're accountable for a lot of things. So when he called me for this, I took it up. I told my teacher also. She said, my teacher was always like, go here, go there, learn things, everything. She used to say, but I know you'll come back to me. She was always confident about that. So even my parents were like that. They gave me so much freedom that it was very natural for me to not misuse it. They were like so free with me that some of my friends used to be like, this is not natural. Because they never even used to call me, where are you? It's gotten late. They never called me. So I used to feel very free about it. But my friends, they always got calls from their parents, where are you? It's late, kind of thing. So then I thought I should value this independence that I am being, given from my parents, and then my teacher also. She has raised me, given me this art, but she has never held me like this. Whereas there were many teachers and my friends, they used to feel very stuck with their own teachers, that they never let them attend workshops, learn more. They were not given that opportunity. So my teacher said, go, freelance. I was a freelancer. Even now I'm a freelancer. That's how it began back then. Then we started performing as a team. We got many opportunities. That was going on one side. And then slowly, I started, so in a dance performance, there is, on the orchestra, you have somebody reciting the bones. That person is called the Natuvana. Like they play the Natuvanam and recite the bones. So slowly, I used to train in this when I was much younger. Slowly, I got opportunities to do this for other dancers. So I started playing the Natuvangam also, apart from dancing on stage. So that also was like a side hustle that was going on. And then I used to teach in colleges, do choreographies. And then at one important point, theatre happened. Again, in childhood, I was put in theatre class and I used to enjoy and all that. But yeah, so my very good friend Veena Basvarajaya, she called me to act in a play that she was putting together. And this was a play with a really big name in the Kannada theatre. Her name is Lakshmi Chandrasekhar. So my first play itself was like with a really big name, and I was not confident. I said, I'm a dancer. Theatre needs something else. I don't know. But I'll try. And it was a very, very new experience, and I was very happy I did that. After which, now when I'm doing more theatre, I've understood, and I tell this to many of my dance friends, that my understanding and love and inclination towards dance has only increased after I did theatre. I feel so fresh when I finish like a play, and now when I come back into concentrating on something to do with dance, I feel very fresh. It gives a much wider perspective after you do a lot of theatre. It has its own, in my career, it has its own ups and downs, but I'm okay. I'm okay to face that and go ahead with it. So this is where I am, okay. And then I am in Chennai now and doing a lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, in childhood that was not a thing, because it was more like many children did that. They joined this quit.
What age do you call as childhood?
No, this was happening between 6 and like 9 or something. From between 7 and 9 or something, I was already into dance class. But at that point, this in and out of things, doing multiple things at the same time was not, judged upon or anything. Even today, actually, there are so many people. See, post COVID, a lot of my dancing opportunities came down. Came down.
Okay.
Also because I moved to a new city. Like in Bangalore, it was thriving. Okay, even now people are like, of course we miss. I also miss Bangalore. Okay, because my opportunities in dancing, especially, was high there. I can't complain only because I moved here, kind of thing. But now I'm very happy with what I'm doing. It's molded in a very different way. So today, even people are like, oh, we don't know what she's doing. She's doing a little bit of theatre. Sometimes she dances. Sometimes she says she sings. Sometimes she says she does movies. So even now there is a perception that I do a little bit of a lot of things, which is very, very helpful for me in life.
And are you personally very satisfied?
I am because there are days where I am in an introspective mode where I'm very like, maybe we should just do one thing, right? So that we are recognized for that and we are called for that. Yeah. But I understood that, I don't know if it's a very Gemini trait, you want to do a lot of things.
So you believe in astrology?
I mean, it's because, see, that's, this forecast I read at the end of the day sometimes. To see if what they told, made sense or not. I don't read it sometimes at the beginning of the day. So, I mean, I'm not a hardcore believer, but I feel, I see some traits of it. So, I'm absolutely okay with it because it's giving me so many experiences that I'm able to take a little bit of everything and function. I see this quote, Jack of all trades, master of none, doesn't apply today at all. Because people are doing so many things. Some people have a lot of side hustles in order to make money and they gain experiences out of it. I am personally absolutely okay, even if my identity is confusing people. I am okay with it.
But it's not confusing you.
It's not confusing me. But I can't say there are no days where I'm like, should have. There are days. That's when it balances out. Otherwise,
everyone would be doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I might, those days help me kind of come to a conclusion that, okay, no, this is what we need.
Gain perspective.
Yeah, I don't think I'm meant to do one thing alone in life. I'm 34 today, that's what I felt. Maybe my answers can change in the next 10 years, I don't know. Today I feel like this. I feel it's okay.
How do you take that call when things are going right for you, but you say, maybe things might be better if I take this up? Or is it, even if things aren't better, I'm still going to be happy? What's your take?
Yeah, see, I was actually very excited that I was starting a new life with the man I love. So I was very excited about that, and let's see.
By the way, is it a love marriage?
Yeah, it's a love marriage. Yeah, so I was very excited about that. There's so much excitement in going towards something new, right? So I was looking forward to it, and it was like for me being so adamant that I won't even move out of Jayanagar, I was looking forward to this. And I thought whatever experiences the life brings, we'll kind of, take it on. And the biggest thing was, we got married in 2019 and 2020 March was when COVID happened, right? So actually, in fact, as soon as I moved to Chennai, I did a US tour with the dance company in Chennai. So for 45 days I was out. Then many people were like, oh, you're anyway moving to Chennai, your dance career will thrive. It's more up for all this, right? So, but in fact, I came with no agenda. I thought we'll see. So I finished that tour, I came back, and then my husband writes. So he wrote a one-woman play for me, and then we premiered that. And then that year was very eventful. Every month, actually, I was going back to Bangalore, continuing my work and all that, and it was still going on like that. I think it was after COVID when it affected everybody. And for me, it really came to a space where what is the opportunity next? So once COVID finished, now I had to, all of us.
Already in Chennai by the time COVID?
Yeah, 2019 Feb I moved here. So COVID happened 1 year later, right? So that 2019 was very eventful with respect to work because I was still going back to Bangalore doing work. It's only now slowly people have accepted that I'm no more in Bangalore. It took few years. Even now, some people think I'm still there. In fact, many college students. Yeah, see, so many college students message me telling, can you come as chief guest for this event? Then I had to kind of tell them I'm not in Bangalore, no, I stay in Chennai. So that kind of a thing is not there here. It'll take some time.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things that I wanted to do when I moved to Chennai was kind of approach colleges to do their intercollegiate choreographies because that is something I used to do in Bangalore for the dance team. So I always wanted to do that. So somehow that didn't happen, but maybe I should still pursue that now, as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking. So after that, I got a call to sing in a play. Once COVID was kind of weaning out and all that, in 2021. So I went and sang for that play. And then slowly I started working with that theatre company, Theatre Nisha in Chennai. So I still work with them now. I did a lot of plays with them. That was like an opening into another world now for me, where my dancing was also welcomed into the play making, and I was completely challenged also. And I even started attending many workshops conducted by Theatre Nisha, others with respect to theatre. So that also gave me a little more experience as to what I want to do. I also work with another theatre company called Theatre Shraddha, who do a lot of Tamil plays. So I enjoyed also doing regional language plays. Like in Bangalore, I love doing Kannada plays.
So what languages are you familiar with?
So my mother tongue is Tamil. Since I grew up in Bangalore, I know Kannada. I studied Kannada in school, English, Hindi. I also talk Malayalam.
Oh.
Yeah, because in Christ College I learned Malayalam. I was there so many years.
That's not surprising.
Yeah. You can't miss out also. And I love learning language. So.
No Telugu.
Telugu. So my husband is a Telugu. So when he talks to his parents, I kind of. I'm now
South India
slowly.
is here.
Yeah, South India is here.
Now, also.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, understood.
This is where I am today. I do a lot of theatre and dance.
What are those movements?
There are a little more than 3-4. One is definitely my training with my dance teacher, because she started putting us on stage much earlier.
In school when you were child.
Yeah, like 7 years, 9 years. She started putting us on stage. We were very young also. She'll call us for one. My first role was of a cow, which is lost in Vrindavan for the Govardhana episode. Okay, that was my first role. So she used to put us on stage, and I think teachers like that today I feel I want to be like that as a teacher, as somebody who facilitates. She used to put us on stage. You learn on stage. You fail on stage, you learn from that failure. And that is in the Murattu Dhairiyam, they will say, Tamil. Take that risk and put the child on stage. Child will learn. Actually, I don't look at it as a risk putting children on stage, because they create something new. Okay, so one is my teacher really believing in taking us on stage and to different stages. And she was the one who actually introduced me to a contemporary dance company in Bangalore with whom she used to work. She used to go to do training in Abhinaya. So she used to be called by them. She used to tell them that I have a student named Preeti who should work with you someday. I was very young that time. So in fact, she is the one who asked me to join this dance company. I danced a lot with them. They're called Nritya. They're still functioning in Bangalore. So my teacher basically giving me this freedom and me working in this dance company. And then my friend Parshvanath, who called me for this production that he was putting together when I was working in Christ. So that is when this group dancing, professional dancing, all of this began. Of course, that's true. And then, of course, the theatre opportunity through Veena Basavaraja, Creative Theatre, Lakshmi Chandrasekhar. That play is called Where the Shadow Ends.
So that was an English play.
That was an English play which has also Kannada in it. Okay, it was a bilingual. Yeah. So our first show was in Raghushankara, and I was really intimidated. I was like, oh no! It's such a big space, and I was very scared. And I remember one small incident I want to tell you this. When I was very young, I had a theatre teacher named Mangala. She came for the first show and she told me she didn't like it. And she came 1 year later when we did the same show in Raghushankara, and she said, now I love it. And for me, that really, she said, today I didn't watch any other actor except you. 1 year later, she came and told me her feedback. And that really told me that you just got to keep doing it. You'll figure it out. So that was one. And of course, marrying somebody like my husband and a lot of creative interactions that has actually taken off and given me a little more confidence in what I want to do with my artwork. Okay, really in my work of art. And of course, with this, my theatre life in Chennai right now. It's really some days are so challenging that I am just like, oh God, am I cut out for this? Can't I just dance? I'm so confident and free while I dance. Why am I putting myself through theatre? I felt that, to be very honest. In In fact, I know many dancers who have tried theatre and they're like, no, can I just go back to dancing? Why are we putting ourselves through this? Which I respect too. But then for me, I think it's a high. It's a high to fail and then figure it out and go back and like actually keep it. So I think I would say chronologically kind of these things. Yeah, that's right. These are the, for now. I'm sure there are many more.
How did you and your husband meet?
Yeah, so he writes. Okay, from childhood, he has always liked writing stories.
Okay.
So there'll be story competitions and all that. He's always written stories. So he was studying his PhD in ISC, Bangalore. So he and his friends, they used to say that at a time when you never got ideas for PhD, you won't know what to do and you're just roaming around. He started writing Tamil plays, and with his friends, they used to stage it. So one such Tamil play, I was called to choreograph. That's how we met, and then yeah. This I don't want to paint a rosy picture. Okay, I'm sure everybody has this. Some people wish to share, some people don't, and that's okay. But there are days where I've really been like, I need not struggle. No, if I'm in Bangalore, I can still kind of thing. But world is changing, so in that way, wherever you are, you'll have to adapt to whatever changes are happening. But I'm really happy with wherever I'm headed today in Chennai.
Okay.
Something will come. See, once the play is over, I don't bring that role back home. I don't even take it to dinner. After show when we go for dinner, we talk about the play, but I am not in that role, in that, all that. In fact, there are many actors whose wives in interviews have said, oh my god, they come back home with that same role, and I say no. I think one I heard is Nasriya saying this about Fahad, and Rohini telling this about Raghuvaran. Apparently they get so obsessed with their role that they don't come out of it. This is not right, wrong, but in my experience, I feel free when I come out of it. You get everything on stage. In fact, another teacher of mine, when we did a workshop in Kerala, it was a very intense workshop on emotions. So one day we were all like so deep into it. The next day we all walked in with like the same intense feeling. And he said, "What's the matter with all of you?" No, sir. No coming in with yesterday's baggage. Yesterday's class. In fact, when you finish class from here and go to your room, go back to your life. So he said that from his experience. But I think it made a lot of sense. Of course, I'll come back home with like, this happened in rehearsal, that happened in rehearsal, this did go well. Those things are okay to discuss. But I don't like carrying on that role and the emotion it entails into my life. I don't like it. That's me. I'm not scared of failure. I tell you that much. That word doesn't definitely. The word doesn't.
But what would be the answer?
I really can't pick one.
But if you had to,
I would say failure. Even today, I'm a failure. Because for me, that only teaches.
Does failure motivate you to get the goal?
Yeah, always. Because see, if I'm getting it right in all the rehearsals, no, I'm not going to be excited at all. Yes, you have to get it. Then I'll probably search more. But if there is one thing that I could not achieve in a rehearsal, I have something to look forward to the next rehearsal. I might not call everything a failure, but I'm not being...
Obviously, I wasn't being fair by asking you to...
Yeah, I mean, it's very binary, but no problem. So, but for me, I'm quite cheap.
That's that for me.
Yeah.
So,
I would still say failure. So, and I'm not being sad when I say, yeah, I'm a failure. I'm not saying that. I'm a failure. Okay. In fact, I don't know. It's not fair to say successful businessman. Sometimes I feel if you actually sit and talk to him, he might have so much to say. But it's just the general numbers if you say successful. But okay, that's fine. I think come what may, I have taken to the stage. Even if there have been issues in personal life and this thing, I have not given up on like a show or an opportunity on stage. We'll do that, we'll go. And again, it's not wrong when even your personal life is going in this thing that you don't, when you're not on stage or you don't show up, that's not wrong. But in what I've seen, how much ever, there have been times where I've not even wanted to be with art. Art has pissed me off, actually. There have been times like that. But I still go back to it. Like, I don't know, I look at it as like, when a mother is feeding a child and weaning the child away from feeding, and the child will cry. The child can't take it, but it will still go back to the mother next day. So I really feel like that. I think how much ever I have been also judged and done a lot of things, I have somehow shown up for a rehearsal or for stage, or even if the workspace has been something that has bothered me and my mental health has not been good, even because of the people in the workspace, I have kind of, I don't know, found a way in which how I want to re-enter that space. If it's extremely toxic, it's not right to keep going there and putting yourself through it. But rather, I think I worked in a very different way where I rose up to a point where nobody else can have the power to do this to me except me. If I have to destroy, it's self-destruction, but nobody else can destroy.
So, what would your accomplishment?
I think showing up on stage, in spite of showing up on stage and at rehearsals, in spite of I don't know, a lot of personal or even workspace constraints. I don't know how I've done it, but like there are some days I don't even want to go to a rehearsal.
Is that a hard thing to do as an artist?
It's very hard. Sometimes I'm like, why am I glorifying this so much? Isn't my mental health more important? I should just shut up and not go there, right? If the workspace is doing this to me, just don't go. Be at home. Figure out. But
Are artistic workplaces toxic in essence?
They are not. I mean, of course, there are space. I find all workspaces are toxic and healthy. Okay, both. But when I say toxic, there are days in which it can get toxic. You can't like call them toxic. Sometimes it can be like today somebody said something, and this is very natural. This happens. Maybe toxic sounds a very big word, but there are days where I feel no, yesterday something happened and I think I should not turn up today. I should just, But I have shown up because I wanted to enter the same space in a way where nobody else can affect me. I will go do my thing and come kind of thing, but it has been a struggle. Some days I'm very like, you don't need to glorify art so much. It has its own horrible side. Some days I've been like this. It's a two-way this thing. I don't know. I can't say which the.
Yeah, it's a grey area.
Yeah, it's a grey area. But there have been, in fact, if I just listen to a song, in fact, the way music has helped me heal. That I would say first, music is the one that actually helps me heal. How much ever I keep saying that there have been times when art has really made me feel very low, as a very shallow person. It's again art itself that gets me out of it. I listen to one song and I feel, oh, what was I doing without listening to this song? It just brings me out of whatever misery I'm going through. So I think in the order of relieving me out of pain and everything, I think I would say music, and then if I just dance without thinking, I feel really good. So what I do sometimes is I go to these dance floors in Chennai with a friend and we just dance. It just, we don't even need to consume anything to get high, nothing. No alcohol, nothing. You can just, I don't know, you can just, for me that itself is a high.
Life.
Yeah, so I've loved dancing all my life, so yeah.
Now, because your profession is something that most people pursue as hobby, what are hobbies to you? Does coding take you away?
I don't even like switching on this light, okay. Nothing to do with like gadgets, no. I think, I miss playing volleyball, but I don't know if it's, now considering where I am, I think I should look at it as a hobby only.
You still play volleyball?
As in, see, I have volleyball there. There's also a volleyball net, everything here where I live. Outside there's like a field, this thing itself.
So do you smash on IIT boys?
No, I want to actually go and play with the students there. They practice quite madly. So maybe that. And I do art, like visual art, fine art. But it's very, I call it restless art. because I don't think much. There is no let's paint a tree today, nothing like that. So I just have things, I'll do something and it will appear to be something. So I do this whenever I'm free.
So
That's
painting probably is your.
Yeah, and I do a lot of craft kind of thing, and I take waste materials and I create art out of it and all that. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention was in those pivotal points, I created this created this production called Me and My Trash. Actually, that was a huge turning point post-COVID when I created something and then I toured with it. So it spoke about trash in all possibilities: inner trash, external trash, physical trash, spiritual trash, everything. It spoke about trash in all senses that we can see. So yeah, that was quite life-changing, I would say.
Could you put your goal into a ration and then say, this is where I am. This is what I am working towards.
I think even at 80, I want to be on stage. I want to be on stage. Even
As
if
a performer or?
as a performer. I think nothing else gives me a height or like a goal. I don't know. I don't have tangible goals actually. Being on stage is not a tangible goal. I think it's more like
I mean, for you,
yeah, it can be, yeah. But for me, I think I want to be. That is something. So for that, so many things have to be achieved, right? Physical health, mental health, so many other things. So it's not like I'm easily saying that at 80 also I want to be on stage, because there's a lot of work that has to happen if I have to be on stage at 80. I have to, work on my craft. I have to like up everything, because people have seen me on stage at 7. And if they have to see me on stage at 80, they should be alive, be really, interested in my craft. If I can hold their hand with me in my journey, I would be very, very excited about that.
Was it your first movie ever?
No, I've done some Chola roles before that. One Kannada, one or two Kannada films, and one or two OTT, whatever I've done. So, of course, Avesham, because one thing is I would like to thank a very dear friend, also theatre maker and a very fine actor, Pooja Mohan Raj. She is the one who actually texted me on Instagram and she said, hey, there's a role like this, which comes alongside me, are you okay to do? I think
So she's the person who played along with you.
yeah, it's her own character she plays. So she texted me on Insta and look at, see where we are today, that a simple text message and then me connecting to the director, it opened up like that. So in fact, see, I had not met her before she had texted me. We had spoken on Insta, college this work. And she had, even if you have to suggest someone, you should know something about their work, right? So sometimes I fear that how are people able to understand you through my social media? What if I am somebody whom I am not on social media? So, but there is belief, right? That there is belief that, yeah, maybe Preeti can do this. And she thought of me and asked me. And then she suggested my name to the assistant director, etc. That's how I got the role. Of course, I was very, very excited because I think film acting is very tough. Again, there's no comparison between stage acting. I'm not saying this to compare anything. I have found it tough.
Independently, film acting is tough.
Film acting is tough. Like how dubbing is tough. Stage acting is tough. I feel the craft of acting is not easy. It's not easy. But if you are at it again and again and again and again, you will definitely find a way. That's why I'm going back to the stage again and again to find what is it that cracks for you. So coming back to Avesham, of course, I'm very, very excited that it's a Fahad film. We're all like jaw-dropping and looking at Fahad in every way possible. I was very excited. And I didn't care about how big or small the role is, etc. And a reliable friend who was asked, so I was okay with that. Once I went there, and the studio was in Bangalore, once I went there, etc. And the director was, I think what I really liked was, he doesn't work or go around with a script in his hand. So he says, this is the same, he talks about that. This is what you have to do, this is where you will be sitting, and okay, this is the same, do it. And he extracts the performance out of the actors. And I see that happen on stage in theatre, in a theatre company when you're making a play. So there was extreme freedom. In fact, when and it was lovely to watch Fahad work. You're sitting next to him, watching him work, watch him prepare. These are all added advantages. Of course, you can watch an interview and understand about his work, etc. This was like first hand. So I had a lot of fun. In fact, there are a lot of things mannerisms, etc. that you do on stage that don't work on camera. So you had to shape that. So for me, all that was a huge learning curve. So even holding a hand like this, unless it's necessary, it was not needed to do for camera. So there are some things that are just, even if you do a little, it's too much for camera. In fact, my hand movement right now in this interview might be too much for many people. Okay, so I'm just saying. So those learnings were very, very important, and it was generally, I think that's how I think today actors interact, network, get more opportunities, etc. So yeah.
And on that thing, how do you know Rama?
Okay, I know Rama ma'am of course through Umbara. I think a very close friend, a mutual friend of Rama ma'am and my Akila Venkat. So she's the one through whom I met Rama ma'am. So I think back in 2016 or 17 is when I did my first photo shoot in Rama ma'am's Malleshwaram house. So through Umbara only. And our friend Akila Venkat, who used to photograph a lot for Umbara. That's how I know her. And it has been her, in fact, Rama ma'am's family also. Parents, sisters, all of them. I met everybody, and all of them have been very, very, very interesting people and very ferociously ambitious people in their own right. And even to actually see Rama ma'am's growth, it has been tremendous. She shared everything. Even when Umbara was not doing well, when Umbara was doing really well, she's always like held and gone ahead. I've enjoyed. She's very interested in my growth, and that she's somewhere and she kind of checks and is very, very involved in my growth, and that's quite humbling. Yeah. I would have definitely found Umbara because the things I search for, look for are all around women-led businesses, more cotton sari, blouse kind of thing, and. See, I don't know. My mom when I first bought a sari online, she's like, "How can you buy a sari online?" She was like that. But today she's like, "This is an online sari, right? For her online sari, shop sari. It's become like that now." Okay. So I would have definitely found myself and landed at Umbara because that's my aesthetic, in some sense. I would have. And today when I see and I watch the kinds of collaborations and brands that Umbara does, I'm happy that, and even with the kind of weavers and weaves she involves herself with, it's very important for us to know actually what we're draping. I didn't like. I ask her doubts in the print. On the print, what's the difference? Why is this priced so much? You tell me. India, I am getting. So I ask her these questions also. Give me a logical reasoning because here I can get the same thing for like this price. Why am I paying so much for it and etc. Then she kind of breaks down for me. So I feel that kind of an interaction, accessibility to the one who runs the business, these are plus points of small scale businesses and also run by women. It's more accessible, and I also, in fact, she's been so open in talking about other brands and saying, I think this particular thing you should buy from that brand. They are good at doing this. She has been that open. So I feel my association with Umbara has, through my modeling pictures and videos, etc., people have been, I don't know, they feel, oh, saris actually look comfortable on you. Maybe it'll be comfortable on us. You carry it off. So when they say that, I feel, yeah, I mean, it's inspiring somebody to try, right? And then they will figure out if they want to wear it or not. So I think it's a very precious.
Are you a sari person?
I am a sari person. I am fully a sari person. So sorry that I'm not wearing sari now for the interview, but I love saris. Yeah, but I also have found them to be uncomfortable in some particular tasks that we do throughout. I won't say I will run a marathon with sari. No, it's not comfortable. I told you my one simple goal that at 80 also I want to exit if I'm alive. but I'm very one day at a time kind of person. In fact, sometimes I write to do tomorrow, I'll be so bored and I'll do something else. So there is planning, but then I also feel that plan doesn't make sense. So I'm very on the go with the flow kind of person. Sometimes too spontaneous. It's just that has also done harm to me. So yeah, not. I don't have actually goals like that. So in fact, my
Not goals. How do you kind of say, what is the reason you're saying?
motivation. Sorry, that's what you meant. Okay, for me, I think self motivation. I'm not self motivated at all. I'll tell you. There are some of my friends and seniors who are so self motivated, and that is inspiring. When you watch another person being self motivated, no, that's quite inspiring. That itself is like, okay, let's also try a bit. Okay, that's how it feels. But otherwise, I don't know what keeps me motivated is I want to feel light in my body. That's when I feel like doing something. If I feel very heavy, I feel very demotivated. When I mean heavy, if
What
I
do you mean, like?
no, like I want to feel mentally and physically very light, not numerical weight. You know what I mean? Like that. Then I feel like something. If I'm bogged down by even I don't know if I've had a heavy meal, I'm like leave me alone. So yeah, I think peers motivate. If they are doing something and that motivate, and when I look at them, it motivates me. I want to get up
So
and
have
do it.
you curated your peers?
Sorry,
Have you curated your peers?
not like that. I mean, my own friends sometimes they just send a sweaty photo after workout. I'm like, let's get. That's it.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, but what do you pick and choose your peers? Like, do you pick and choose who you get really, really close?
No, not really. Some people who have been uninspiring at some point today inspire me for the things that I never thought I'll be inspired. So no, I can't box it that way. It's all you'll undo your own judgments after one point. No? It's like that.
With legacy, and do you want to leave a legacy kind of thing?
I don't want to leave behind a legacy. I don't want to. But if we have children, one thing is I want to really. I want to leave them behind in this world as really kind-hearted people. That's it. No other legacy than that. If you're talking about art like that, legacy, that's
One question probably most of the people who want to pursue arts might have in their heads at least. And this can be the decision maker kind of question. Right? Is it financially viable to be an artist?
it takes time. It's not like a salary package in which you can enter. It takes time. So that's why I mean some of our friends who are in the IT firms in their 20s, early 20s. So they look at us in 30s who have done this full time for like so long and still doing. வேலையை விட்டுலாம் இருக்கேன், want to leave my job and I want to do full time. But they are in good, well paying jobs in their IT firms. So I have always advised, make time for art in your life. Evenings after your job, if you can get to a rehearsal, weekend if you can give time for like training or early morning, that way give time. But don't let go of your job, which can help you save up. In the beginning years, art will not be able to give you that much money to save up. This I'm talking about people who have jobs and who ask us for advice, me or my husband or my friends. They ask us, can we like quit our jobs and do full time? I always say, if you have another thing in your hand, like today, if I don't know if I was, I mean I didn't mention this. Long back I had this thing of let me be a German translator, so that will give us like some side money. So if I had that, I would definitely be doing that for like to pay my bills and give more time, so that will take care of my other things and I can like give time for art. But since that for me nothing else worked, I didn't have any other thing. It was tough in the beginning. It took some time. That's why I went and joined my college. So that gave me a salary. When I quit my college job, it was tough because it was freelancing and we had to figure out. So immediately it's not viable at all. I always tell my friends to, if you're in a job, that's all. And find out if you have a skill with which you can have a side hustle and make money. If something can at least take care of basic expenses. So, but once you slowly understand and crack it, I don't know, it's like business people also do this, no? Well, initially it's like once you like get a hang of it, yeah. But even now, many theatre people they try and do some film projects and projects because you get a lump of money. So that and then because stage plays don't pay you that much unless it's a theatre company that really accounts for things and sees to it the actors have to be paid. Or if it's a diligent company like that, like the companies I work with, they take care. They see to it rehearsal money is paid, travel money is paid. That's important. And for you to get to that place to work with these companies, also find out. And I would suggest actors performers, even in their early stages, to not work for free. At least get the conveyance amount paid or something. You start from there. I don't think we should do anything for free. Nothing. I feel. Then you will be able to create a thing for you.
What would be your advice to your 9-year-old?
My 9-year-old self, you should have continued playing volleyball. That would have been one of my things.
And if she did that and she kind of went into volleyball full time, would you be happy?
Yeah, I would have been happy. I would have been.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have been happy, definitely.
Okay. So
Because I think I don't know, my body is kind of designed to do physical things, so it enjoys that. Yeah.
what's a fun fact about you that probably nobody will know? Nobody wouldn't know about you unless and until they've really known you for a long time.
I crack a lot of jokes. Like, I have a set of.
Tell us.
Okay, what do you call a drunk queen?
Good.
Her Highness.
Good.
Sorry, so I have jokes like this, and I think
Do you make these jokes? Do you read it online? Do that? What do you?
no, I create it and keep it, but I think my partner is the one who he's very good at this. He's a way more. He's a funnier person, but he has a poker face and he's funny, so it's all about fun. So he's way more humorous than me, but I have this side which slowly people know about. Yeah.
So most people don't know about you that you crack jokes.
Instantly they don't know. Instantly they think she's a dancer because they look at my face. That's an immediate giveaway. When they think I am very like this. Once I open my mouth, they'll know that.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received? And you didn't have to. And like, not. And who gave it to you? Yes, it's come.
I think I gave myself one advice, which is go with the flow. This going with the flow was a great advice I gave myself.
Where did you get that idea from?
Because I couldn't stay with misery for long. The next day had to happen and to go ahead and not like otherwise it was very. So one is that. I think another is what my teacher told. Don't bring yesterday's emotions into today's class. That was so helpful actually. Like don't stay like that with that character.
So that was the most.
It was another helpful thing. I mean, get out of it. And in fact, if you get out of it, you can look at that character in a fresh way again. The same character. Because the character is not going to be the same person every day. We're going to be bored otherwise if it's going to be like that every day.
So, look, if you could have dinner with 3 people, like dead or alive,
Head or alive.
who would they be?
Audrey Hepburn. Okay. Kamal Haasan.
Name.
Maybe. I don't know. My grandfather actually. He's no more, but
You spent some time with him when you were
yeah, I mean he died when I was 11. But I feel today, if I went out on dinner with him, it would have been something. My mother's father. Yeah, I think these 3 people.
Okay. So, wow. If there could be some sort of final ending, anything that you want to say in front of the camera that you want etched in the history of Preeti Bharadwaj. And
No, after 10 years they might be like she said something else.
It's okay.
No, that's okay.
hey, why just something that you want to say today, that you feel today, probably something that's relevant to you only for this month or day or moment
Yeah.
that you want documented on the internet. forever, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
people can come back and criticize you.
Yeah.
What would that?
I think if we can go a little far away and take a little more risk and do something for our closed ones, I think we should do if we can.
Take risks for your close ones.
Yeah, if we can, if
Not
you
for
know,
yourself.
of course for ourselves. Okay, first is that. No, today, I mean, since you asked, I think if you can go out of your way and if it's feasible enough to do that, do it. Like if somebody needs you, and if you feel you can go and spend that extra. Imagine you're left for the office or something, and you know that there's somebody who is not doing well, and if you have time, you can come back, spend that 5 minutes at home. If we can do that at some point, I think it makes a huge difference in that person's life, because it's important that we are there when they want us, even if it's like a minute, even if it's to go back and say, I actually want to spend time with you, but I have to be home today because my children are waiting. That means a lot. So I feel out the problem message. I don't know something. I feel if we can go out of our way and try to be there for somebody who needs us at that point, we should try if we can, if it's feasible.
That's something that you want to do for yourself as well.
For myself, and I want to also try and be there for whoever I can be there as much as possible. I am, but if I can do more, that gives me happiness. Giving care gives me happiness.
And one last question, which is being there in my mind that I wanted to ask. Why is your Instagram username Natuma?
This is the most important question. Okay. So I used to play Nattuanga. Even now I play the symbols that you played for accompanied for a Bharatanatyam performance. So I started playing that when I was very young, and in college, my dance team, they started calling me Nattu Mummy, all that. So when I joined Instagram, I'm like, okay, what to give, and then I gave this. That's all. So many people think that is my name. That is my name. I think in Bangalore I was called as chief guest for some college, and they didn't know my name was Preeti. They called me as, we would like to welcome Nattu Mummy. I was like, that's not my name. It's my username. So yeah, that's all. Nothing big and all. I think there have been days where I wanted to change that username. But then, I realized today it's become so synonymous and either with your identity on social media that I'm scared to change it. It's like, it's a headache to change your name, no? With the paperwork, everything happening today. Like today I want to change my name to, I don't know, Kaveri. It's a big work that I have to do, okay? And it's going to take time. If you do it in childhood, then no problem. Everybody knows me. And the username changing once it's really popular is a headache.
If I were to give you advice, don't change it.
Don't change it, okay. Thank you. I won't change it. I'll just keep it like that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Srinidhi. I think this was fun.
Yes.
And I could reminisce a lot. Thank you so much. Nice.